The entire restaurant staff vanished the second he walked through the door. Not literally, but they might as well have. Managers suddenly discovered urgent paperwork. Veteran servers developed mysterious back problems. Even the hostess, who'd worked there 12 years, pretended her computer system crashed. All because Ethan Callaway, the 32-year-old billionaire they'd only seen in corporate emails, had just sat down at table 17. Nobody wanted to serve him. Nobody dared. Except one person didn't get the memo. A tired waitress balancing 3 jobs who had no idea she'd just walked into the most dangerous table of her life. Before we dive into this story, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. Amelia Brooks was 30 years old, perpetually exhausted, and currently holding a coffee pot that weighed more than her self-esteem. The downtown restaurant where she worked evening shifts smelled like expensive wine and the kind of anxiety that came with $70 steaks. She'd been on her feet for 6 hours. Her lower back felt like someone had replaced her spine with broken glass. "Table 9 needs water refills," Marcus hissed as he rushed past, carrying a tray of appetizers that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She nodded, grabbing the pitcher. Her reflection in the polished silver caught her eye for half a second. Brown hair pulled into a bun that had started neat 8 hours ago, makeup that had surrendered around hour 4, dark circles she'd stopped trying to hide. She looked exactly like what she was. Someone working 3 jobs to keep a studio apartment she could barely afford. The restaurant was one of 5 establishments owned by Callaway Hospitality Group. Amelia knew that much from the employee handbook she'd skimmed during orientation. What she didn't know, what nobody bothered telling the evening shift servers, was that the company had been hemorrhaging employees for the past 6 months, or that the CEO had a reputation for showing up unannounced and destroying careers before dessert arrived. Amelia. She turned. Gerald, the floor manager, stood near the kitchen entrance. His face had gone the color of old paste. "Yeah?" "Table 17 just sat down." "Okay." She waited for more information. Gerald just stared at her like she'd asked him to explain calculus. "Do you want me to take it?" "No." He said it too quickly. "Actually, He glanced toward the dining room, then back at her. His hands were shaking. "Just stay in your section." That was weird. Gerald never turned down table assignments. The man would serve food during a tornado if it meant better tips. But before she could ask questions, he disappeared into the kitchen like someone had lit him on fire. The restaurant's atmosphere had changed. Amelia felt it the way you feel weather shifting before a storm. Conversations had dropped to murmurs. 2 servers she'd worked with for months were suddenly very interested in folding napkins near the wait station. Marcus, who never shut up, had gone completely silent. She looked toward table 17. A man sat alone near the window. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark suit that probably cost more than her car. He wasn't looking at the menu. He wasn't looking at anything, really. Just sitting there with the kind of stillness that made you nervous. His face was sharp, controlled. The kind of face that knew exactly how much power it held. Nobody approached him. Amelia watched Sarah, one of the senior servers, literally walk in the opposite direction when the hostess tried to guide her toward table 17. Another server, Danny, suddenly discovered urgent business in the storage closet. This was insane. She walked to the wait station where Marcus was aggressively polishing already clean wine glasses. "What's going on?" she asked quietly. "Nothing." "Marcus?" He didn't look up. "Just stay away from that table." "Why?" "Because—" He stopped polishing. His jaw worked like he was chewing words he couldn't quite spit out. "That's Ethan Callaway." The name meant nothing to her. She waited for context. "The owner," Marcus said, like she was stupid. "The CEO, the guy who fires people for fun." "He doesn't fire people for fun." Last month he walked into the Houston location unannounced. 3 managers got terminated before lunch. He shut down the entire Denver restaurant because someone used the wrong type of olive oil. Marcus finally met her eyes. "The man's a psychopath, Amelia. Nobody wants to serve him because nobody wants to be the one who screws up." She glanced back at table 17. Ethan Callaway, if that's who he really was, hadn't moved. He sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table, waiting, just waiting. "So what?" Amelia said slowly. "We're just going to ignore a customer." That's not a customer. That's a corporate bomb waiting to explode. He's a person sitting at a table. He's the reason Jenkins got fired last year. The reason Portland lost half their staff. He's one person, Amelia interrupted, who needs someone to take his order. Marcus stared at her like she'd suggested jumping off a bridge. You're not seriously... But she was already walking. Honestly, she was too tired to care about corporate drama, too broke to worry about rich people's egos. She had exactly $43 in her checking account and rent due in 9 days. If this guy wanted to fire her for bringing him water, fine. She'd find another job. She'd been finding other jobs her whole life. She grabbed a menu and a water glass. The walk to table 17 felt longer than it should have. She could feel every eye in the restaurant tracking her movement. The kitchen had gone quiet. Even the background music seemed to lower, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Amelia reached the table and put on her best professional smile. The one that said, I'm friendly, but also I've been standing for 6 hours and my soul left my body around 4 p.m. Good evening, she said. My name's Amelia. I'll be taking care of you tonight. Ethan Calloway looked up. His eyes were dark gray, cold as January pavement. They locked onto her face with the kind of focus that made her skin prickle. This was a man who noticed everything, every hesitation, every false note, every crack in your armor. She could feel him reading her the way you'd read a balance sheet, calculating her worth in real time. Water, he said. His voice was quiet, controlled. No ice. Of course. She poured from the pitcher, keeping her hand steady. Would you like to hear tonight's specials? No? Okay then. Direct. She could work with direct. Take your time with the menu, she said. I'll check back in a few minutes. She turned to leave. Wait. She stopped, turned back. Ethan was watching her with that same cold calculation. You're new here. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. 3 months. You don't know who I am. I know you're a customer who wants dinner. She kept her voice level, professional. Is there something specific you'd like to order, or should I come back? Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or annoyance. She couldn't tell which. For a long moment, he just studied her, silent. The weight of his attention felt like standing under a microscope. Bring me the ribeye, he said finally. Medium rare. No sides. And tell Gerald I want to speak with him before the food arrives. Of course. She walked away before he could drop any more conversational grenades. Her heart was pounding, not from fear exactly, but from the sheer intensity of that interaction. The man radiated control like heat from asphalt, every word measured, every movement calculated. Gerald materialized the second she reached the kitchen. What did he say? The manager's face was slick with sweat. He wants to talk to you, and he ordered the ribeye. Oh God, Gerald looked like he might throw up. Did he seem angry? Did he say anything about the restaurant, about service quality, about... He ordered a steak, Gerald, calm down. But Gerald didn't calm down. He practically sprinted toward table 17, straightening his tie as he went. Amelia put in the order and went back to her other tables. Table 9 needed dessert menus. Table 12 wanted separate checks. Table 6 was celebrating an anniversary and needed the staff to sing that embarrassing birthday song except for anniversaries, which somehow made it worse. 20 minutes later, she brought out Ethan's ribeye. He was still sitting exactly as she'd left him. Same position, same expression, like he'd been frozen in time. She set down the plate. Ribeye, medium rare. Can I get you anything else? Sit down. Amelia blinked. I'm sorry? Sit. He gestured to the chair across from him. I want to ask you something. Every instinct told her this was a trap. She glanced toward the kitchen. Marcus was watching through the service window, eyes wide with panic. Gerald stood near the host stand, looking like he might actually pass out. I'm working, Amelia said carefully. I have other tables. They can wait. Sit. It wasn't a request. She pulled out the chair and sat, folding her hands in her lap. Up close, Ethan Calloway looked exhausted, not physically tired, but worn down in a way that went deeper than missed sleep. There were shadows under his eyes, tension in his jaw. How long have you worked in service industry? He asked. 12 years, different restaurants, different cities. You've never been fired. Again, not a question. No. Why? She frowned. Because I show up on time and do my job? Most people show up on time. He cut into his steak with surgical precision. What makes you different? This felt like a job interview she hadn't applied for. I don't know. I'm polite. I don't steal. You're deflecting. I'm confused about why you're asking. Ethan set down his fork. Everyone in this restaurant is terrified of me. You're not. Why? Amelia considered lying. Considered telling him she simply didn't recognize him, which was partially true, but something about his directness demanded honesty in return. Because fear doesn't help me do my job, she said. You want a steak? I bring you a steak. Your bank account doesn't change the fact that you're hungry, and I'm here to help with that. He studied her for a long moment. You really believe that? Yes. Everyone's equal. In terms of deserving basic respect? Yeah. She met his eyes. Look, I don't know what you want me to say. You're clearly someone important. Everyone's freaking out. But you sat down at a table in a restaurant where I work, which means right now you're my customer. That's the only thing that matters to me. Ethan leaned back in his chair. The ghost of something, amusement maybe, touched the corner of his mouth. Gerald told me you're studying business management online. Her stomach dropped. He did? Seems like a waste. You're 30 years old, working for minimum wage plus tips, trying to get a degree that'll land you an entry-level position, making barely more than you make now. He paused. Why bother? The question stung more than it should have, probably because she'd asked herself the same thing at 3 a.m. while studying for exams between shifts. Because I want to do more than serve food, she said quietly. No offense to servers. I've been one half my life, but I want to build something, understand how businesses work, maybe run one someday. Noble. His tone suggested it was anything but. Unrealistic, but noble. Thanks for the encouragement. I'm not here to encourage you. I'm here to eat a steak and watch how my employees behave when they think nobody important is watching. The honesty surprised her. So this is what a test? Call it research. And how's everyone doing? Terribly. He took another bite. They're so busy protecting themselves, they've forgotten how to do their jobs. Fear makes people stupid. Amelia couldn't argue with that. She'd watched Gerald nearly have a breakdown over a table assignment. Your steak okay? She asked. It's fine. Just fine? It's overcooked. Medium rare means pink center, not brown with a pink edge. But I didn't come here for the food quality. She should have kept her mouth shut, should have nodded and walked away. Instead, then why did you come? Ethan set down his knife and fork with careful precision. Because 6 months ago, I realized I'd built a company where people are more concerned with avoiding mistakes than doing things right. Profits are up, employee retention is down, customer satisfaction is dropping, and I have no idea when it started or how to fix it. So you're going undercover? I'm observing. By terrifying your staff? I'm not doing anything. They're terrifying themselves. He had a point. Nobody had forced Gerald to panic. Nobody had told Marcus to hide in the storage closet. Your ribeye is getting cold, Amelia said. I don't care about the ribeye. Then what do you care about? The question hung between them. For a moment, Ethan looked almost vulnerable, like the corporate armor had slipped and she could see the actual person underneath. Someone tired, someone carrying weight he didn't know how to put down. I have a daughter, he said quietly. She's 7. Smart, funny, completely fearless. And lately she's been asking why I'm always angry. Amelia didn't know what to say to that. I'm not angry, Ethan continued. I'm just... He stopped. Started again. My wife died 4 years ago. Car accident. One day she was here, next day she wasn't. And I had this company to run and a 3-year-old who didn't understand why mommy wasn't coming home. So I worked. I built. I controlled every variable I could control because I couldn't control the one thing that mattered. He looked directly at her. Somewhere in that process, I became the kind of person my own employees are afraid of. The kind of father who makes his daughter ask why he's always angry. And I don't know how to be anyone else anymore. The restaurant noise faded to background static. Amelia sat across from this billionaire CEO who'd just cracked himself open in the middle of a dining room, and she had absolutely no idea what to say. I think, she said slowly, you start by remembering that fear and respect aren't the same thing. Explain. Your employees are afraid of you. That's not the same as respecting you. Fear makes people freeze up, avoid risks, hide mistakes. Respect makes people want to do better because they actually care about the outcome, not just about protecting themselves. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. And you think I've built a culture of fear. I think you've built a culture of survival, which might work short-term, but long-term? She shrugged. People burn out, good employees leave. The ones who stay are just the ones too scared to jump ship. You're brutally honest. You asked. Most people don't answer honestly when I ask. Most people are probably worried you'll fire them. Aren't you? Amelia considered it. I mean, yeah, kind of. But also I have $43 in my bank account and rent due next week, so I'm already operating from a place of pretty constant low-level panic. You firing me would just be another Tuesday. For the first time that night, Ethan actually smiled. Small, barely there, but real. You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. He picked up his fork again, took another bite of his overcooked steak. Gerald tells me you're the most requested server here. Gerald talks too much. Customers ask for you by name, even the difficult ones. I'm good at my job. Why? Because I don't take things personally. Someone's rude to me. 90% of the time, it's not about me. They're stressed, having a bad day, whatever. I just try to make their hour here less terrible than whatever they're dealing with outside. That's surprisingly empathetic for someone working 3 jobs to survive. Empathy doesn't cost anything. She stood up. I should get back to my other tables. Your steak okay despite being overcooked? It's fine. Just fine? Ms. Brooks. He looked up at her. Thank you for the conversation. You're welcome, Mr. Calloway. She walked away feeling like she'd just survived something, though she wasn't sure what. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Ethan finished his meal, paid in cash, and left without speaking to anyone else. The moment his car pulled away, the entire restaurant exhaled. Gerald emerged from whatever anxiety spiral he'd been trapped in. Marcus immediately started gossiping about what had happened at table 17. What did he say to you? Sarah grabbed Amelia's arm near the wait station. Did he threaten to fire anyone? Is he shutting us down? He ate a steak and asked about my degree. That's it? That's it. But it wasn't it. Not really. Because 3 days later, Amelia arrived for her evening shift to find Ethan Calloway sitting at table 17 again. Same table, same dark suit, same unsettling stillness. Gerald looked like he might cry. Not again, Marcus muttered. Why is he back? What does he want? Amelia grabbed a water pitcher and walked over. Good evening, she said. Water? No ice? Ethan looked up. You remember. It's my job to remember. Most servers don't. Most servers aren't supporting themselves on tips. She poured his water. Ribeye again. Or are you feeling adventurous? The salmon. And I want you to tell the chef it's for me specifically. I want to see if the quality changes when they know who they're cooking for. Amelia hesitated. That feels like a setup. It's an experiment. Same thing. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Just place the order, Ms. Brooks. She did. The kitchen lost their minds. The head chef personally prepared the salmon like he was performing surgery. It came out perfect. Crispy skin, tender center, plated like art. Ethan ate it without comment, paid, and left. He came back the next night, and the night after that. By the end of the week, table 17 belonged to Ethan Calloway, and Amelia had somehow become the only server in the restaurant brave enough, or stupid enough, to treat him like a normal customer. You're playing with fire, Marcus warned after the 5th visit. He's testing you, building a case. One mistake, and you're gone. Then I won't make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, Amelia. Then I guess we'll see what happens. But the strange thing was, Ethan never seemed angry when she messed up. She forgot his water once. He just asked again politely. She brought the wrong appetizer. He ate it anyway. She accidentally interrupted him while he was on a phone call. He simply held up one finger and finished his conversation. He was demanding, yes, exacting, but not cruel. And slowly, carefully, something shifted. They started talking. Real conversations, not just order-taking. He asked about her classes. She asked about his daughter. He told her about hostile board meetings. She told him about the regular customer who left Christian pamphlets instead of tips. That's illegal, Ethan said. It's annoying, Amelia corrected, but not worth fighting about. You let people take advantage of you. I pick my battles. That's just another way of saying you don't fight back. She met his eyes. Not everything is a fight, Mr. Calloway. In my world, everything is. Then maybe your world is the problem. The conversations were sharp, direct, sometimes uncomfortable, but they were real. And Amelia got the sense that Ethan had very few real conversations in his life, just strategic ones, careful ones, conversations designed to maintain control and distance. With her, he didn't maintain distance. He told her his daughter asked him to read bedtime stories, but he always worked too late. Amelia told him to leave work earlier. He said it wasn't that simple. She said it absolutely was that simple. He just didn't want to admit he was choosing work over his kid. Most people didn't talk to billionaires like that. Most billionaires didn't keep coming back. You know what I think? Amelia said on the 8th night, refilling his coffee. I think you're lonely. Ethan froze. Excuse me? You show up here every night, sit alone, and have conversations with your waitress. That's lonely behavior. I'm conducting research. You're avoiding an empty house. His jaw tightened. You're overstepping. You asked me to be honest. I asked you to take my order. And yet, here we are, talking about your daughter again. She set down the coffee pot. Look, I'm not a therapist. I'm barely holding my own life together. But I know what lonely looks like because I see it in the mirror every morning. And you, Mr. Calloway, are lonely. For a long moment, he didn't speak, just stared at his coffee like it held answers. Her name is Sophie, he said quietly. My daughter. She wants a dog, but I work too much to take care of one. She wants me to come to her school plays, but I'm always traveling. She drew a picture of our family last week, just her and the nanny. I wasn't even in it. Amelia's chest hurt. Did you ask her why? No. Why not? Because I'm afraid of the answer. She sat down across from him. She'd stopped asking permission after the 3rd visit. You want my completely unqualified opinion? Apparently I'm going to get it regardless. Your daughter doesn't need a perfect dad. She just needs a dad who shows up. Even if you're tired, even if you mess it up, showing up is the whole thing. You don't have children. No, but I had a father who worked constantly and a mother who left when I was 12. I know what it's like to be the kid wondering if you're worth someone's time. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, past the waitress uniform and tired smile. Are you worth someone's time, Ms. Brooks? The question knocked the air from her lungs. I'd like to think so, she said quietly. Most days I'm not sure. That makes 2 of us. They sat there in the expensive restaurant, a billionaire and a waitress, both lonely in completely different ways that somehow felt exactly the same. And neither of them noticed Gerald watching from the kitchen, phone in hand, already typing an email to corporate HR about inappropriate fraternization and potential liability. Neither of them knew that everything was about to change. But they would, soon. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning while Amelia was sleeping off a double shift. She didn't see it until almost noon, when her phone buzzed with a calendar notification for something she definitely hadn't scheduled. Corporate meeting, today, 3 p.m., Calloway Hospitality Group headquarters. Attendance mandatory. She read it 3 times, convinced it was spam. Then she checked the sender. Gerald Patterson, floor manager. The same Gerald who'd been avoiding eye contact with her for the past week. Her stomach dropped. She called the restaurant. Marcus picked up on the 4th ring, kitchen noise loud in the background. Marcus, did you get a weird corporate meeting email? Nope. Why? I just got summoned to headquarters. Today. In like 3 hours. Silence. Then, oh shit. What? Amelia, nobody gets called to headquarters unless they're getting promoted or fired, and they don't promote waitresses. Her hands went cold. I didn't do anything wrong. Doesn't matter. Calloway's been coming in every night for 2 weeks. People talk. Gerald's been acting weird. I heard him on the phone with someone from HR last week talking about inappropriate workplace dynamics or some corporate bullshit. We just talked. That's it. Yeah, well, billionaires don't just talk to waitresses. Not in Gerald's universe. Marcus lowered his voice. Listen, if they're letting you go, don't sign anything without reading it first. And don't let them bully you into a non-disclosure agreement unless they're paying you for it. She hung up feeling sick. 3 hours later, she stood outside a glass tower in the financial district, wearing the only professional outfit she owned, a black skirt and white blouse she'd bought for her mother's funeral 6 years ago. The building stretched up into the gray afternoon sky, all steel and windows and money. The lobby was marble and intimidation. A receptionist with perfect makeup directed her to the 14th floor. The elevator was the kind that moved so smoothly you couldn't feel it, which somehow made everything worse. When the doors opened, she stepped into a hallway that looked like a magazine spread. Everything was white and chrome and expensive. A woman in a tailored suit appeared immediately, clipboard in hand. "Amelia Brooks?" "Yes." "Follow me, please." They walked past glass-walled offices where people in expensive clothes had important-looking conversations. Everyone looked purposeful, polished, like they'd been designed rather than born. Amelia had never felt more out of place in her life. The woman stopped at a conference room. "Wait here. Someone will be with you shortly." Then she disappeared, leaving Amelia alone with her panic. The conference room was ridiculous. Massive table, leather chairs, a view of the city that probably cost more than her annual salary. She sat at the far end, hands folded in her lap, trying not to touch anything expensive. The door opened. Amelia expected HR. Maybe Gerald. Instead, a woman in her 50s walked in. Sharp gray suit, sharper expression. She carried herself like someone who'd spent decades perfecting the art of intimidation. "Miss Brooks, I'm Patricia Chen, VP of Human Resources." She didn't offer to shake hands, just sat down across from Amelia and opened a leather portfolio. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." "I didn't realize I had a choice." Patricia's smile was thin. "You always have choices. Some are just better than others." She clicked a pen. "How long have you been employed at our downtown location?" 3 months. "And in that time, you've had multiple interactions with Ethan Calloway. Is that correct?" Amelia's throat tightened. "He's been a customer, yes. A customer you've served exclusively for the past 2 weeks, because nobody else wanted to. And during these interactions, what did you discuss?" This felt like a trap. Every question felt like a trap. "His orders mostly, sometimes other things." "What other things?" "I don't know. Work, life, normal conversation." Patricia wrote something down. "Did Mr. Calloway ever make you uncomfortable?" "No." "Did he ask personal questions?" "Sometimes. I asked him personal questions too. We talked. That's what people do." "Not typically what employees do with the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company." Amelia's patience was wearing thin. "Look, I don't know what Gerald told you, but nothing inappropriate happened. Ethan, Mr. Calloway, came in. I served him food. We talked like normal humans. That's it." "You call him Ethan." "Sometimes he calls me Amelia." "That suggests a level of familiarity that concerns us." "Why?" Amelia leaned forward. "Why does it concern you that 2 people had conversations? What exactly are you accusing me of?" Patricia closed her portfolio. "I'm not accusing you of anything, Ms. Brooks. I'm trying to understand the nature of your relationship with Mr. Calloway so we can determine appropriate next steps." "Next steps for what?" The door opened before Patricia could answer, and Ethan Calloway walked in. He wasn't alone. 3 men in expensive suits followed him, executives clearly from the way they moved. But Amelia barely noticed them. Her entire focus locked onto Ethan, who looked nothing like the tired man who'd sat at table 17 for 2 weeks straight. This version wore power like armor. Tailored charcoal suit, perfect tie, hairstyled precisely. His face had that corporate neutrality she'd seen in magazines, cold, controlled, unreadable. He walked to the head of the table and stood there, hands in his pockets, surveying the room like he owned it, which, technically, he did. "Ms. Brooks," he said. His voice was different, professional, distant. "Thank you for coming." She couldn't find words, just stared at him, trying to reconcile this man with the one who'd told her about his daughter's school plays. Ethan gestured to the executives. "This is James Rodriguez, Chief Operating Officer, Michael Tang, VP of Operations, and you've met Patricia." He sat down at the head of the table. "Please sit." Amelia was already sitting. She didn't point that out. One of the executives, James, she thought, opened a laptop. "Ms. Brooks, We've asked you here today to discuss some concerns that have been raised about workplace conduct at our downtown location. What concerns? Michael jumped in. We've received reports of fraternization between staff and executive leadership. Specifically, multiple employees have noted unusual interactions between yourself and Mr. Calloway. Unusual how? Extended conversations, personal discussions, time spent at his table that exceeded normal service parameters. Amelia looked at Ethan. He was watching her with that same calculating expression from the first night, like she was a problem he was solving in real time. Are you firing me? She asked directly. No, Ethan said. Then what is this? He leaned back in his chair. Tell me something, Ms. Brooks. In the past 2 weeks, how many times did you see me interact with other employees at the restaurant? The question threw her. I don't know. A few times? How did those interactions go? She thought back. Gerald's panic attacks, Marcus hiding, Sarah literally walking away. People were scared of you. Why? Because you're the CEO. Because they thought you were there to fire them. And you? I thought you were there to eat dinner. Something shifted in the room. The executives exchanged glances. Patricia's pen stopped moving. Ethan stood up and walked to the window. For a long moment, he just looked out at the city. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. 6 months ago, our employee satisfaction scores dropped to an all-time low. Turnover hit 40% across all locations. We're losing good people to competitors who pay less but treat them better. He turned back to face the room. At the same time, our profit margins increased by 12%. Revenue is up. Stock price is up. By every conventional metric, this company is succeeding. So what's the problem? Amelia asked. The problem is that I've built a company where people are afraid to do their jobs, where managers care more about avoiding blame than solving problems, where employees would rather quit than speak honestly about what's broken. He looked directly at her. You were the only person in that restaurant who treated me like a human being instead of a threat. Do you know why that matters? She shook her head. Because if my own employees can't be honest with me, how am I supposed to fix anything? James cleared his throat. Sir, with respect, Ms. Brooks is a server. She doesn't have the corporate experience or training to... She has something better, Ethan interrupted. She has perspective. She sees how this company actually functions at ground level, not from a 14th floor conference room. He sat back down. For the past 2 weeks, I've been conducting an unofficial audit of our workplace culture. I visited the restaurant repeatedly to see how employees behave when they think nobody important is watching. The results were worse than I thought. Michael frowned. We have formal audit processes. HR conducts regular. Formal audits tell me what people want me to hear. I needed to see what they do when they think I'm not looking. Ethan pulled out a folder. Gerald Patterson has been manipulating scheduling to reduce labor costs below safe staffing levels. He's also been keeping tips meant for servers to offset operational expenses. Amelia's breath caught. She'd suspected the tip thing, but could never prove it. Marcus Chen has been selling liquor license access to the private events coordinator in exchange for premium shift assignments, Ethan continued. Sarah Williams has been accepting cash payments from vendors for preferential ordering, and the head chef has been running a side catering business using our supplies and kitchen. The executives looked uncomfortable. Patricia had gone pale. How long have you known this? James asked. 2 weeks. Since I started paying attention. Ethan closed the folder. But the individual violations aren't the real problem. The real problem is that we've created a culture where this behavior makes sense, where people feel like they have to cheat and scheme just to survive, where fear drives decision-making more than integrity. He looked at Amelia again. Ms. Brooks is the only employee who didn't change her behavior when I showed up. She didn't panic, didn't lie, didn't try to impress me or manipulate me. She just did her job and treated me with basic human respect. He paused. That shouldn't be exceptional, but in this company, it is. Patricia finally spoke. What are you proposing? A complete cultural overhaul, starting with leadership accountability and ending with rebuilt trust across every level of operation. Ethan's voice was steel. I'm not interested in firing my way out of this problem. I'm interested in understanding why good people feel like they have to compromise their values to work here. That's a significant undertaking, Michael said carefully. It would require extensive resources, time, retraining. I'm aware. That's why I'm creating a new position. Ethan turned to Amelia. Director of Cultural Development and Employee Advocacy. Someone who reports directly to me and has authority to investigate workplace complaints, recommend policy changes, and hold leadership accountable for toxic behavior. The room went silent. Amelia's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. You're not serious. I'm completely serious. I'm a waitress. You're someone who understands what it's like to work at the bottom of a corporate hierarchy. Someone who knows how fear and power dynamics affect decision-making. Someone who's proven she can be honest even when it's uncomfortable. He leaned forward. I need someone in this company who isn't afraid of me, who'll tell me the truth even when I don't want to hear it. You've been doing that for 2 weeks. I'm offering you the chance to do it permanently. I don't have the qualifications. You have the most important qualification, integrity. Everything else can be learned. James looked like he wanted to object. Michael was already shaking his head. Patricia's expression suggested she thought this was corporate suicide. Amelia's mind was spinning. What about my current job? You'd be giving notice. Full-time position here, salary starting at $90,000 plus benefits. $90,000. She made $22,000 last year working 3 jobs. I need to think about it, she said. Take 24 hours. We'll have the full offer letter ready by tomorrow afternoon. The meeting ended shortly after. The executives filed out, still looking shell-shocked. Patricia gave Amelia a business card with an expression that suggested she'd rather not. Then it was just Amelia and Ethan in the massive conference room. You're insane, she said. Possibly. Your entire executive team thinks this is a terrible idea. My executive team helped create the culture I'm trying to fix. Their opinion on this particular matter doesn't carry much weight. She stood up, legs shaky. Why me? Really? There are thousands of people more qualified because you're not trying to impress me. You're not calculating what answer I want to hear. You just say what you actually think. He stood too, walked closer. Do you know how rare that is in my world? How exhausting it is to constantly wonder if people are being honest or just telling me what they think I want to hear. So I'm basically corporate honesty insurance. You're someone I trust. Trust is more valuable than any qualification on a resume. Amelia looked at him, really looked at him. This was the same man who'd told her about Sophie's drawings, who'd admitted he was afraid of his own daughter's honesty. But he was also a billionaire CEO offering her a job that could change her entire life. If I say yes, she said slowly, I'm going to make enemies. Your executives already hate this. The employees will think I slept my way into the position. Gerald will probably try to sue for wrongful termination when you fire him. When I fire him? Come on. You can't keep a manager who's been stealing tips. Ethan smiled slightly. See, you're already thinking like leadership. I'm thinking like someone who's been stolen from. Even better. She took a breath. Let it out. I need the full night to think about it. This is too big to decide right now. Understood. But Amelia. He waited until she met his eyes. Whatever you decide, thank you, for the past 2 weeks, for being honest, for reminding me that not everyone in this building is playing corporate games. Some of us are just trying to pay rent. That's what makes your perspective valuable. She left the building in a daze, stepping back out into the gray afternoon with her entire world tilted sideways. The bus ride home felt surreal. Her apartment, the tiny studio with the leaking faucet, and the neighbor who screamed at his TV felt even smaller than usual, $90,000. She could pay off her student loans, get a car that didn't sound like it was dying, maybe even save money for the first time in her adult life. But she'd also be walking into a corporate war zone. Ethan was essentially asking her to be his eyes and ears in a company that had spent years perfecting the art of hiding problems. The executives would resist. The managers would resent her. The employees would suspect her motives. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. So, are you fired? No. Suspended? No, She sat on her bed. I got offered a job. A real job. Corporate position, $90,000 a year, working directly with Callaway on fixing company culture. Silence. Then, you're fucking with me. I'm not. Amelia. That's insane. You don't just go from waitress to corporate executive. That doesn't happen in real life. Apparently it does. Are you going to take it? That was the question, wasn't it? She looked around her apartment, at the peeling paint, the stained carpet, the stack of bills on her counter marked overdue in red letters. I don't know, she said honestly. But she was lying. She knew. She'd known the moment Ethan described the position, because for the first time in her life, someone was offering her a chance to do more than survive, a chance to actually build something, to matter. The fact that it terrified her didn't make it less true. She called Ethan's office the next morning at 9 a.m. His assistant, a woman with a voice like cold efficiency, put her through immediately. Ms. Brooks. I'll take the job, Amelia said, but I have conditions. I'm listening. First, I need training, real training, not just throwing me into meetings and hoping I figure it out. If I'm going to do this job right, I need to understand corporate structure, HR law, conflict resolution, all of it. Agreed. We'll arrange it. Second, I need protection. If I'm going to investigate complaints and hold people accountable, there will be retaliation. I need it in writing that I can't be fired or demoted without your direct approval, and that any attempt to circumvent that results in immediate termination for whoever tries. Done. Third, I want full transparency. If you're going to use me as your honesty barometer, then I need to know you're being honest with me too. No corporate games, no hidden agendas. If you want me to trust you, it goes both ways. A pause. Then, that's fair. Anything else? Yeah, your daughter, Sophie. She took a breath. Part of fixing company culture means fixing work-life balance, which means you need to actually go home at night, be at her school plays, read her bedtime stories. Because if you're asking employees to trust that you care about their well-being, you need to prove you care about your own family first. That's not part of your job description. Then consider it a personal condition of my employment. You want honesty? Here it is. You can't build a healthy company culture while destroying your relationship with your kid. Fix both or fix neither. The silence stretched so long she thought he might have hung up. You're going to be a problem, Ethan said finally. That's literally what you're hiring me for. Fair point. When can you start? I need to give 2 weeks' notice at the restaurant. I'll handle that. Start Monday. 9 a.m., 14th floor. Wait, I can't just abandon. Gerald's being terminated today for theft and labor violations. The restaurant needs a complete management overhaul anyway. Your coworkers will be fine. He hung up before she could argue. Amelia stood in her tiny apartment, phone still pressed to her ear, wondering what the hell she'd just done. By Friday afternoon, the restaurant was in chaos. Gerald was gone. Security had walked him out Thursday morning. Marcus reported that the head chef had quit before he could be fired, and Sarah had been transferred to a different location. The entire management structure had collapsed in 72 hours. It's a bloodbath, Marcus said when she came in to collect her last paycheck. Corporate sent in some interim manager who's interviewing everyone. They're asking about working conditions, tip distribution, scheduling practices. Everything. Good, Amelia said. Easy for you to say. You're getting promoted to corporate. The rest of us are just trying not to get caught in the crossfire. She felt guilty about that, about leaving while everything burned. But she also knew this needed to happen, that the restaurant couldn't heal without cutting out the infection first. Her last shift was Saturday night. She worked her section, served her tables, pretended everything was normal. Around 9 p.m., a woman came in and sat at table 17. She was in her 40s, expensive coat, wedding ring that probably cost more than Amelia's car. She ordered wine and the salmon, and when Amelia brought it out, the woman smiled. You must be Amelia. Do we know each other? Not yet. I'm Rebecca Thornton. I work in HR at Callaway Hospitality. Ethan asked me to give you this. She slid a folder across the table. Your offer letter, benefits package, and training schedule. He wanted you to have the weekend to review everything before Monday. Amelia took the folder, hands trembling slightly. He also wanted me to tell you something, Rebecca continued. He left work at 5:30 today, first time in 3 years. Apparently he had a school play to attend. Something warm spread through Amelia's chest. Sophie's play. His daughter, yes. He called me from the parking lot, completely panicked, because he didn't know what to wear to a second-grade theatrical production. Rebecca laughed softly. I told him to relax and just show up. That's all kids really want, for their parents to show up. Did he? I assume so. He hasn't called back in a panic, which I'm taking as a good sign. She finished her wine. I've worked for Ethan for 8 years. I've never seen him leave early for anything. Whatever you said to him, it worked. Amelia didn't know how to respond to that. Rebecca stood, left cash for the bill plus a generous tip. See you Monday, Ms. Brooks. Welcome to corporate. Then she was gone, leaving Amelia standing in the middle of the dining room, holding a folder that represented her entire future. She opened it that night in her apartment. The offer letter was real. $90,000 base salary, full benefits, 4 weeks vacation, comprehensive training program. The benefits package included health insurance that would actually cover things, dental, vision, even a retirement plan. There was a handwritten note paperclipped to the last page. Ms. Brooks, thank you for the honesty. Thank you for the push. Sophie's play was 3 hours of second graders singing off-key about friendship and recycling. It was perfect. I'll see you Monday. EC. She read it 3 times, smiling despite herself. Monday morning, Amelia walked into the glass tower wearing a new suit she'd bought with her last paycheck. Her stomach was in knots. Her hands were sweating. She had no idea what she was doing, but she showed up anyway. Because showing up was the whole thing. The receptionist on the 14th floor looked at her like she'd walked into the wrong building. Can I help you? I'm Amelia Brooks. I'm starting today, Director of Cultural Development. The woman's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose half an inch. Oh, right. Mr. Calloway mentioned... She caught herself, rearranged her face into professional neutrality. Your office is down the hall, 3rd door on the left. He's expecting you at 9:30. Amelia found the office. It was small compared to the executive suites she'd passed, but it had a window. An actual window with a view of the city. Her own desk, her own computer, a door that closed. She stood in the doorway for a solid minute, trying to convince herself this was real. You planning to go in or just stare at it? She turned. A woman in her mid-40s stood behind her, holding 2 coffee cups. She had dark hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun, glasses, and the kind of expression that suggested she'd seen every variety of corporate nonsense and wasn't impressed by any of it. Rebecca Thornton, the woman said, offering one of the coffees. We met briefly at the restaurant. I'm VP of Human Resources, which means we'll be working together frequently. Probably too frequently for your comfort. Amelia took the coffee. Thanks. Don't thank me yet. I put real sugar in it, which around here is basically corporate treason. Everyone drinks it black or with that artificial garbage. Rebecca walked past her into the office, set her own cup on the desk. Let me give you the unofficial orientation. Your official one starts at 10, but that's just paperwork and videos about sexual harassment policies. And the unofficial one? The truth. Rebecca sat in the desk chair, gestured for Amelia to take the visitor's seat. The role reversal was clearly intentional. Half the executives think Ethan's having a breakdown. The other half think he's sleeping with you. Nobody thinks this position is legitimate. Amelia's stomach clenched. Great start. I'm not done. The managers at the restaurant level are terrified you're going to audit them next. The employees think you're corporate spy. And the board... Rebecca laughed without humor. The board thinks Ethan's lost his mind and is looking for ways to remove him without tanking the stock price. Why are you telling me this? Because if you walk in here expecting people to be happy about your presence, you'll be disappointed in about 6 minutes. But if you understand the landscape, you might survive long enough to actually make a difference. Rebecca leaned forward. I've worked here 8 years. I've watched this company slowly strangle itself with fear and metrics and quarterly earnings reports. Ethan's right. The culture is toxic. But fixing it means going to war with people who benefit from the status quo, which is basically everyone in power. Exactly. So here's my question. Are you actually ready for that fight, or did you just take this job for the salary bump? Amelia met her eyes. I took it because someone finally offered me a chance to do something that matters. And because Ethan asked me to be honest, which means calling out problems even when it makes people uncomfortable. And you think that's going to work? Honesty? I think it's the only thing that will. Rebecca studied her for a long moment, then smiled. Actually smiled, not the corporate version. Okay. I'm in. In what? Your corner. Someone needs to be, and it might as well be the person who controls HR complaints and termination procedures. She stood up. Come on, Ethan's waiting, and he hates when people are late. They walked down the hallway together. Amelia noticed how people watched them, quick glances, whispered conversations that stopped when they got too close. She'd been here 20 minutes and already felt like an infection the body was trying to reject. Ethan's office was at the end of the hall, corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of view that probably required a salary she couldn't even imagine. Rebecca knocked once and opened the door without waiting for a response. Ethan sat behind a massive desk, reading something on his computer. He looked up, and for half a second Amelia saw the man from table 17, tired, human, real. Then the corporate mask slid back into place. Ms. Brooks, welcome. Rebecca, thank you for the escort. Someone has to make sure she doesn't get lost. Rebecca left, closing the door behind her. Ethan gestured to the chair across from his desk. How was your first morning? Terrifying. Everyone thinks you're either crazy or sleeping with me, possibly both. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. I see Rebecca gave you the unofficial orientation. She's direct. I like her. She's one of 3 people in this building I actually trust. Now there's 4. He stood up, walked to the window. I'm going to be honest with you about something, and it's going to sound worse than it is. That's a terrible way to start a sentence. I don't know if this is going to work. The position, the cultural reform, any of it. I know what needs to change, but I don't know how to actually change it without burning the entire company down in the process. Amelia waited. He kept talking. 6 months ago, my daughter drew that picture, the one without me in it, and I realized I'd spent 4 years building a company that I thought would secure her future, but I'd stopped being present in her actual life. I'd become this, he gestured vaguely at himself, thing. This corporate machine that made money and fired people and attended board meetings, but I wasn't a father anymore. I wasn't even really a person. So you went undercover in your own restaurant. I needed to see if the problem was just me or if it was systemic. Turns out it's both. He turned to face her. You were the only person who treated me like I was human. Do you understand how depressing that is? That I had to go undercover just to have a real conversation? Sounds lonely. It was. It is. He sat on the edge of his desk. I'm asking you to help me fix something I don't fully understand. To hold people accountable when I've been the one setting the tone for years. To build trust in a company where I've rewarded fear. No pressure. I'm serious, Amelia. If this doesn't work, if you can't do this, or I can't support you the way you need, or the board shuts us down before we make progress, I need you to know that's not a reflection on you. This might be impossible. She stood up and walked to the window next to him, looked out at the city below. From up here, everything looked small, manageable, like you could rearrange the buildings with your hands. My mom left when I was 12, she said quietly. Just walked out one day. My dad worked construction, gone before I woke up, home after I went to bed. I raised myself mostly, learned to cook, do laundry, forge his signature on permission slips. And I remember thinking, if I just did everything perfectly, maybe she'd come back. Maybe he'd notice me. Maybe someone would care. Ethan was quiet beside her. I'm 30 years old and I'm still trying to prove I'm worth noticing. Still working 3 jobs to survive. Still convinced that if I just try harder, do better, be more, then maybe I'll matter. She looked at him. So when you ask if I can do this impossible job, yeah, I can. Because I've been doing impossible things my entire life just to justify my own existence. At least this time I'm getting paid for it. That's not I know what you're going to say. That I don't need to prove anything. That my worth isn't conditional. But knowing something intellectually and believing it emotionally are different things. She crossed her arms. So here's the deal. I'll help you fix your company if you actually let me fix it. No corporate games, no undermining me when I make decisions you don't like. And when your executives push back, and they will, you back me up, publicly. Done. I'm not finished. You also need to keep going to Sophie's school events. Keep leaving work at reasonable hours. Because if you slide back into being the corporate machine, I quit. I'm not helping you build a better company culture while you destroy your relationship with your kid. Both or neither. Ethan extended his hand. Deal. She shook it. His grip was firm, warm. For just a second, they weren't CEO and new hire. They were two lonely people trying to figure out how to be better than they'd been. Okay, Ethan said, releasing her hand. Let's start with the easy stuff. I need you to conduct exit interviews with everyone who's quit in the past 6 months. Find out why they really left. How many people are we talking about? 47. Jesus. Most won't talk to you. They'll be afraid of burning bridges, ruining references, legal retaliation, but some will. And the ones who do will tell you things my executives have been hiding from me for months. He pulled out a folder, handed it to her. Names, dates, positions. 47 people who'd walked away from decent salaries and benefits because working here had become unbearable. Start with the restaurant staff, Ethan said. They're the most recent departures. Then move to corporate. Rebecca will give you access to the HR files and contact information. What am I looking for specifically? Patterns. Are people leaving because of individual managers or systemic problems? Is it the workload, the culture, the lack of growth opportunities? I need data, not assumptions. Amelia flipped through the folder. One name jumped out. Jennifer Martinez Server worked at the downtown location for 6 years before quitting 3 months ago. She'd been there long before Amelia started. What about the people who are still here, she asked. The ones too scared to leave. That's phase 2, but we can't fix the problems for current employees until we understand why the good ones are walking away. The official orientation started at 10. 3 hours of paperwork, policy videos, and a tour guide who clearly had no idea what Amelia's actual job was. The other new hires, all corporate positions, all people with impressive resumes and expensive degrees, kept glancing at her like she'd wandered into the wrong group. During lunch, one of them finally asked, "So what department are you joining?" "Cultural development and employee advocacy." Blank stares. "It's a new position," Amelia explained, "reporting directly to the CEO." More blank stares, now with a hint of suspicion. Wow, that's impressive," a woman in a designer suit said. Her tone suggested it was anything but. "What's your background? McKinsey? Deloitte?" "I was a waitress." The table went silent. "At one of our restaurants," Amelia continued, because she was apparently incapable of not making things worse. "The downtown location." Someone laughed, caught themselves, pretended to cough. The designer suit woman smiled, sharp and cold. "How progressive. I'm sure that will bring a unique perspective to corporate strategy." "That's the idea?" "Well, good luck with that." Amelia ate her salad alone after that. She didn't mind. She'd been eating alone most of her life. That afternoon, she started making calls. Most went to voicemail. The few people who answered were polite but distant, clearly uncomfortable discussing their former employer with someone from corporate. Then she reached Jennifer Martinez. "Hello? Hi, is this Jennifer? This is Amelia Brooks from Callaway Hospitality. I'm calling about—" "I know why you're calling. Gerald already tried this. I'm not interested in coming back." "I'm not asking you to come back. Gerald doesn't work here anymore." A pause. "What?" "He was terminated last week for theft and labor violations. I'm not calling to recruit you. I'm calling to ask why you left." "Who are you again?" "I'm new. I work in cultural development, which is corporate speak for trying to fix all the things that are broken. And I can't fix them if I don't know what they are." Jennifer laughed, bitter and sharp. "You want to know why I left? How much time do you have?" "As much as you need." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "Fine, but not over the phone. You want to hear this? We meet in person, somewhere public." They met at a coffee shop downtown. Jennifer was in her 40s, tired eyes, the kind of exhaustion that came from years of dealing with bullshit. She ordered black coffee and sat across from Amelia with her arms crossed. "So, Gerald's really gone?" "Really gone. Escorted out by security." "Good. He was a thief and a creep and everyone knew it, but nobody did anything because he made the numbers look good." She took a sip of coffee. "You know, he used to schedule me for closing shifts with just one other person? 2 people to close a restaurant that size, clean everything, prep for morning. We'd be there until 2 a.m. sometimes. Completely illegal, but he didn't care." Amelia wrote this down. "And the tips," Jennifer continued, voice rising slightly. "He took 20% off the top every night, called it a processing fee, said it was for credit card transaction costs, but we all knew he was pocketing it. I did the math once. He probably stole $30,000 over 2 years from servers making minimum wage. Did you report it? To who? His boss didn't care as long as labor costs stayed low. HR never responded to complaints. I filed 3 separate reports and nothing happened. She leaned forward. You want to know why I really left? Because I realized the company didn't care. They talked about values and integrity in the employee handbook, but when it came down to actual problems, they protected the managers and ignored the workers. What would have made you stay? Jennifer sat back, surprised by the question. Honestly, someone listening, someone actually investigating complaints instead of filing them away. Someone holding managers accountable instead of promoting them for hitting profit targets by screwing over their staff. If things changed, if we actually fixed these problems, would you consider coming back? You're serious. Completely. Jennifer studied her. Who are you really? Because you don't sound like corporate HR. I was a server at the downtown location, worked there 3 months before. She hesitated, then committed, before Ethan Calloway showed up and offered me this job. Ethan Calloway, the CEO. Yeah. He just offered you a corporate position out of nowhere? It's complicated, but basically, yes. Jennifer's expression shifted, something between skepticism and hope. Is he actually trying to fix things, or is this just PR damage control? I think he's trying. I can't promise it'll work, but I think he genuinely wants to change how this company operates. Then tell him this. The problem isn't individual bad managers. It's a system that rewards bad behavior. Gerald stole tips because it improved his labor cost percentages, which got him bonuses. Managers cut corners on safety because it made their locations more profitable. Everyone's incentivized to screw over employees because that's what corporate measures and rewards. Amelia wrote faster. This was exactly what Ethan needed to hear. They talked for another hour. Jennifer gave names, specific incidents, patterns of behavior that went back years. By the time they finished, Amelia had filled 15 pages of notes. Thank you, she said. Really, this helps more than you know. Jennifer stood up to leave, then paused. Hey, you seem like you actually give a damn. That's rare around here, She hesitated. Be careful. People who try to change things in that company tend not to last long. Either they quit or they get forced out. Don't let them break you. I'll try. No, don't try. Decide you won't let them. There's a difference. Amelia watched her leave, then sat alone with her coffee and 15 pages of evidence that Calloway Hospitality was exactly as broken as Ethan suspected. She conducted 8 more interviews over the next 2 weeks. Same patterns, different details. Managers manipulating schedules, skimming tips, retaliating against complaints. HR either incompetent or deliberately ignoring problems. A culture where fear kept people quiet and profit mattered more than people. Ethan read her preliminary report in silence, jaw tight. This is worse than I thought, he said finally. This is just the restaurant division. I haven't even started on corporate yet. He rubbed his face with both hands. The board meeting is in 2 weeks. They're already questioning my judgment about your position. If I present this, they'll fight you every step of the way, Amelia finished. Because fixing these problems means admitting they existed in the first place, which makes them look incompetent. Exactly. So don't ask permission, just fix it. Ethan looked up. Explain. You're the CEO. You don't need board approval to fire bad managers or change incentive structures. You need their approval for major financial decisions, but cultural reform? She leaned forward. That's internal operations, your domain. They can still make my life hell. Let them. What are they going to do, fire you? You own 30% of the company. They'd tank the stock price trying to force you out. A slow smile spread across his face. You're suggesting I go nuclear. I'm suggesting you do what you hired me to help you do. Fix the company. They can complain all they want, but if the numbers improve, and they will, once you stop hemorrhaging good employees, they'll shut up eventually. And if they don't, then at least you'll have tried. At least Sophie won't have to grow up wondering why her dad knew something was broken, but didn't fix it because he was afraid of corporate politics. That landed. She could see it in his expression. Okay, Ethan said quietly. Let's do it. Pull together a complete list of managers with substantiated complaints. I want documentation, patterns, specific incidents. We're going to clean house. Over the next week, Amelia worked 18-hour days building the case. Rebecca helped, pulling HR files and complaint records that had been buried for years. They found a pattern of retaliation against anyone who spoke up. Negative performance reviews, reduced hours, sudden terminations for minor policy violations. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen, Rebecca said, looking at the documentation. Multiple lawsuits. Has anyone sued? 2 former employees tried, both settled with NDAs. The company paid them to go away quietly rather than fix the actual problems. Amelia added it to the report. On Thursday afternoon, Ethan called an emergency meeting with his executive team. Amelia sat in the corner, laptop open, ready to present findings. James Rodriguez walked in first, followed by Michael Tang and 3 other executives whose names Amelia couldn't remember. They looked annoyed at being pulled away from whatever important things they'd been doing. Ethan didn't waste time. We have a systemic problem with management accountability across our restaurant division. Ms. Brooks has been conducting exit interviews and investigating employee complaints. The findings are significant. James glanced at Amelia, barely concealing his contempt. With respect, sir, exit interviews are notoriously unreliable. Disgruntled former employees tend to exaggerate. 17 former employees independently reported the same patterns of behavior, Amelia interrupted. Tip theft, schedule manipulation, retaliation against complaints. That's not exaggeration. That's documentation. Michael leaned back in his chair. And your recommendation is what? Fire everyone who's ever had a complaint? That's half our management structure. My recommendation is to terminate managers with substantiated evidence of theft, harassment, or retaliation. Then implement actual oversight and accountability measures so this doesn't happen again. That's a massive disruption to operations. The disruption is already happening, Ethan cut in. We've lost 47 employees in 6 months. Good employees who left because we created an environment where bad behavior goes unpunished. That's the disruption. One of the executives Amelia didn't know spoke up. The board isn't going to support this. They'll see it as admitting liability. I don't care what the board supports, Ethan said flatly. This is an operational decision, not a financial one. We're making these changes. The room went cold. James's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. Probably, but it's my mistake to make. The meeting ended badly. The executives filed out, muttering to each other. James stopped at the door, looked back at Amelia. Enjoy it while it lasts, he said quietly. This company eats people like you for breakfast. She didn't respond, just held his gaze until he left. Ethan waited until they were alone. That went better than expected. They're going to undermine us. Obviously, but they can't stop us, which is what matters. He closed his laptop. Tomorrow we start terminations. I need you there for every meeting, HR representation, documentation, the whole formal process. You sure you want me there? I'm not exactly popular with management right now. That's exactly why I want you there. Someone needs to witness this who isn't invested in protecting the status quo. The next 2 weeks were brutal. They fired 9 managers across 6 locations. Each meeting was the same: shock, denial, anger, threats of legal action. Some cried, some yelled. One threw a chair. Amelia sat through all of it, taking notes, staying quiet unless she needed to provide documentation. She watched Ethan maintain absolute control, never wavering, never apologizing. This was a different version of him, harder, colder, but also somehow more honest. He wasn't hiding behind corporate speak. He was just directly dismantling the structure he'd built. By the end of week 2, the company was in chaos. Locations were operating with interim managers or no managers at all. Employees were confused, scared, energized, angry, sometimes all at once. Corporate was in full panic mode, fielding calls from the board, from shareholders, from business press asking questions about mass management changes. Amelia's office had become a war room. She'd barely slept, living on coffee and protein bars, coordinating with Rebecca to implement new oversight procedures while simultaneously trying to keep operations from completely collapsing. Around 10 p.m. on a Friday night, she looked up from her computer to find Ethan standing in her doorway. You should go home, he said. I'm almost done with the new manager evaluation framework. It can wait until Monday. Can it? Because we have 3 locations running without proper management, and if we don't have a hiring and evaluation system in place by next week, Amelia. He walked into her office, sat in the visitor's chair. Go home, sleep, eat something that isn't from a vending machine. She wanted to argue. Instead, she saved her work and closed her laptop. How's Sophie? She asked, confused about why I'm home for dinner every night now. Asked me yesterday if I got fired. He smiled slightly. I told her I was trying to be less terrible at my job. What did she say? She said, good, because you were pretty terrible before. Amelia laughed despite her exhaustion. Honest kid. She gets it from somewhere. He stood up. Come on. I'll walk you to your car. They rode the elevator down in tired silence. The building was empty at this hour, just security guards and a few workaholics still at their desks. Outside, the city was dark and cold, early winter settling in. You know they're going to push back harder now, Ethan said as they walked through the parking garage. The executives, the board. Once the initial shock wears off, they're going to fight this. I know. You could still walk away. I'd give you severance, references, whatever you needed. Nobody would blame you. She stopped walking, turned to face him. Do you want me to walk away? No. Then stop giving me permission to quit. I'm not going anywhere. He studied her face in the dim garage lighting. Why? This isn't what you signed up for. The job was supposed to be investigating complaints and recommending changes, not being at the center of a corporate civil war. Because for the first time in my life, I'm doing something that actually matters. Something bigger than just surviving. She crossed her arms against the cold. You asked me to help you fix this company. That's what I'm doing. So stop trying to protect me from the consequences. I'm not fragile. I'm not protecting you. He stopped, started again. I'm making sure you know what you're getting into. Because once we cross certain lines, there's no going back. The board could force me out. They could shut down your position. They could make both our lives extremely difficult. Let them try. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe, or recognition. You're not afraid of them. I'm terrified of them, but fear doesn't get to make my decisions anymore. She walked to her car, unlocked it. See you Monday, Ethan. Try to actually rest this weekend. She drove home through empty streets, exhausted and wired and more alive than she'd felt in years. The fight was just getting started, and she was ready. Monday morning arrived with an email from the board of directors requesting Ethan's presence at an emergency meeting. Amelia found out when Rebecca knocked on her office door at 8:15, looking grim. They're circling, Rebecca said, dropping a printed email on Amelia's desk. Full board meeting today at 2. Subject line is operational concerns and management restructuring. That's code for we're coming for your job. Amelia scanned the email, formal language, careful phrasing, but the intent was clear. They can't fire him. He owns too much stock. They can make him miserable enough that he quits. Or they can vote to strip his operational authority, make him CEO and title only while they install someone else to actually run things. Rebecca sat down heavily. I've seen this before. Different company, same power play. The board doesn't like losing control. What do we do? We? Nothing. You keep your head down and hope you don't get caught in the crossfire. Rebecca paused. That's the smart play. Anyway. And the stupid play? Walk in there with him. Make them look you in the eye while they try to dismantle everything you've built. Amelia was definitely going with the stupid play. She spent the morning preparing documentation, exit interview summaries, complaint records, the financial impact of turnover versus the cost of management restructuring. Numbers the board couldn't ignore, even if they wanted to. At 1:30, Ethan stopped by her office. He looked tired but calm, wearing the same corporate armor she'd seen that first day in the conference room. You don't have to come to this, he said. I know. They're going to attack the position, attack the process, attack you personally. It won't be pleasant. When has any of this been pleasant? He almost smiled. Fair point. Bring your laptop. If they want data, we'll bury them in it. The boardroom was on the 16th floor, all dark wood and leather chairs, and the kind of aggressive wealth that made you feel small just walking in. 8 board members sat around a table that could have seated 20. Most were older men in expensive suits. 2 were women who looked equally expensive and equally hostile. Ethan walked in like he owned the room, which technically he partially did. Amelia followed, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "Ethan," said an older man at the head of the table. Silver hair, sharp eyes, the bearing of someone used to being the most important person in any room. "Thank you for coming on short notice." "Robert?" Ethan's voice was neutral. "I don't believe you've met Amelia Brooks, our new director of cultural development." Robert's gaze flicked to her, dismissive. "Yes, we've heard quite a bit about Ms. Brooks." They sat. Amelia opened her laptop, pulled up her files. Robert didn't waste time. "Ethan, we're concerned. In the past 3 weeks, you've terminated 9 managers across 6 locations, created a new corporate position without board consultation, and initiated what appears to be a complete restructuring of our restaurant operations, all without prior approval." "Operational decisions don't require board approval," Ethan said evenly. "That's outlined in the corporate bylaws. Operational decisions that impact company stability do." A woman to Robert's left spoke up. Catherine something. Amelia couldn't remember her last name. "We've had 3 locations operating without proper management. Employee confusion is at an all-time high, and we're getting questions from shareholders about instability in leadership." "The instability already existed," Ethan replied. "We were losing employees at a 40% annual turnover rate. I'm addressing the root cause. By firing managers who've been with us for years, managers who consistently hit their profit targets." Robert leaned forward. "Help me understand the logic, Ethan, because from where we sit, you've taken a functioning system and blown it up." "A functioning system?" Amelia couldn't stay quiet. 47 people quit in 6 months. That's not functioning." Robert's eyes narrowed. "Ms. Brooks, with respect, you've been with this company for 3 weeks. I'm not sure you have the full picture." "I have exit interviews from 17 former employees documenting systemic theft, harassment, and retaliation. I'd say that's a pretty clear picture." "Exit interviews from disgruntled employees hardly constitute—" "They constitute a pattern," Amelia interrupted. She pulled up her data. "Would you like to see the financial impact? We spent $1.2 million last year on recruitment and training to replace employees who quit. That's not counting the productivity loss, the customer satisfaction decline, or the 2 settlements we paid to former employees who threatened to sue." The room went quiet. Catherine spoke next, voice icy. "Those settlements were confidential. Rebecca Chen provided me access to HR records as part of my investigation. The settlements aren't confidential from internal leadership conducting sanctioned reviews." "This wasn't a sanctioned review." "I sanctioned it," Ethan cut in. "Ms. Brooks is operating with my full authority. Everything she's done, every file she's accessed, every recommendation she's made, I approved it." Robert's expression hardened. "Then let's talk about Ms. Brooks's qualifications. She has no corporate experience, no management background, no relevant education. She has integrity," Ethan said, "which is more than I can say for some of the people we've been employing." "That's insulting." "It's accurate. The managers we terminated weren't just bad at their jobs. They were actively harming employees and stealing from them. And nobody in corporate leadership noticed or cared because they hit their profit numbers." "Because profit numbers matter, Ethan. We have shareholders to answer to. We have quarterly earnings reports. We can't run a company on feelings and employee satisfaction surveys. We can't run a company without employees." Ethan's voice was steel now. "Every metric you care about, profit, growth, market share, depends on having good people who want to work here. Right now, we don't. We have people who are afraid to leave because they need the paycheck, and people who do leave the second they find something better. That's the nature of restaurant work. That's the nature of bad management, and we're going to fix it." Another board member jumped in, a younger man Amelia hadn't noticed before. "At what cost? You're proposing what exactly? Hire all new managers, implement new oversight systems? That's millions in operational expenses." Amelia pulled up another file. "Actually, based on current turnover costs versus projected management expenses, we break even in 18 months. After that, reduced turnover saves us approximately $800,000 annually. That's speculative math. It's conservative projection based on industry standards. Companies with strong culture and low turnover consistently outperform those with high turnover. This isn't revolutionary, it's basic business sense." Robert looked at Ethan. "You're betting the company's stability on theories from a waitress with a laptop." "I'm betting on data and human decency. both of which seemed to be in short supply in this room. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. Catherine leaned back in her chair. Ethan, we understand you're passionate about this, but passion doesn't make good policy. We need stability right now, not upheaval. The market is already questioning your judgment. Let them question it. And if this experiment fails, we all pay the price. Shareholders, employees, everyone. It's not an experiment, it's a correction. Robert stood up. Then let me be clear. The board does not support this direction. We believe you're making decisions based on personal feelings rather than sound business judgment. And if you continue down this path, we'll have no choice but to take action. What action? Ethan's voice was quiet, dangerous. You can't fire me. You can't override my operational authority. What exactly are you threatening? We can make your life extremely difficult. We can vote to restrict your decision-making power. We can communicate our concerns to major shareholders and create pressure you can't ignore. Robert's expression was cold. Don't force us to go to war over this, Ethan. You won't like how it ends. Ethan stood up slowly. I've already been to war, Robert. With myself. With this company. With the person I became while building it. And I decided I'd rather lose a fight than keep winning the wrong way. He picked up his laptop. The cultural reform continues, with or without board support. If you want to fight me on it, go ahead, but I'm not backing down. He walked out. Amelia grabbed her laptop and followed, pulse hammering. Behind them, she heard Robert's voice. This isn't over. In the elevator, Ethan was silent. His jaw was tight, hands clenched. Amelia had never seen him this angry. That went well, she said. He laughed, sharp and humorless. They're going to make this hell. Let them. Amelia. No, listen. They threatened you because they're scared. Scared of losing control, scared of admitting they were wrong, scared that you might actually succeed and prove they've been running this company badly for years. She turned to face him. That's not a reason to stop. That's proof we're doing something right. The elevator opened. They walked back to the 14th floor in silence. Over the next week, the board made good on their threat. Robert started calling major shareholders, expressing concerns about operational stability. Business articles appeared questioning Ethan's leadership decisions. Stock price dipped 3%. The executive team became openly hostile. James stopped attending meetings. Michael started copying the board on every email, clearly building a paper trail. Even small decisions became battles. And through it all, Amelia kept working. She hired new managers, people with experience but also empathy, who understood that leadership meant supporting your team, not terrorizing them. She implemented anonymous complaint systems so employees could report problems without fear of retaliation. She created new evaluation metrics that measured not just profit, but employee retention, customer satisfaction, workplace safety. It was exhausting. Most days she worked 14 hours. She lived on coffee and takeout. Her apartment became a place she slept occasionally between shifts at the office. But things were changing. Employee complaints started coming in, real ones, not the vague concerns that had been buried before. People felt safe enough to speak up. And when they did, Amelia investigated. Every complaint, every concern, every suggestion. Some were legitimate, others weren't. But she treated all of them seriously. 3 weeks after the board meeting, Marcus called her. I heard you're hiring new managers for the downtown location, he said. Yeah, applications are open. Why? I'm applying. Amelia sat up straighter. Seriously? You said you wanted people who cared about employees, not just numbers. I care. I've been working restaurants for 12 years. I know how to run a good shift, and I'm tired of watching bad managers ruin good teams. Marcus, if you get this job, people are going to say I hired you because we're friends. Let them. Are you hiring me because we're friends or because I'm qualified? Both, honestly. Then that's fine. I can handle gossip. I can't handle watching this company waste another opportunity to fix itself. She added his application to the pile. A week later, she hired him. Also Jennifer Martinez, who came back after Amelia personally called to explain the changes. Also 3 other former employees who'd left because of toxic management. The downtown location became her test case. New management, new policies, new culture. Employees got reliable schedules, fair tip distribution, actual breaks. Managers got training on conflict resolution and employee development. The first month was rough. Turnover actually increased initially as some employees quit rather than adapt to accountability. Others thrived. By month 2, things stabilized. Customer satisfaction scores went up. The location started hitting profit targets, not by cutting corners, but by running efficiently with motivated staff. Ethan visited on a random Tuesday night, sat at table 17. Marcus served him. "Ribeye, medium rare?" Marcus asked, grinning. "Actually, I'll try the salmon." "Adventurous, I like it." When Amelia stopped by after work, Ethan was still there, working on his laptop. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Working. Sophie has a sleepover tonight. Figured I'd get caught up on emails." "You could do that at home." "I could, but I wanted to see how the restaurant's running." He closed his laptop. Marcus is good, really good. He's been checking on customers, helping new servers, handling a kitchen issue without breaking a sweat. You made the right call hiring him. He made it easy by being qualified. Still, you took a risk hiring former employees. Could have backfired. Amelia sat down across from him. "Everything we're doing is a risk. Might as well take the ones that feel right." He smiled, a real smile, the kind she'd seen rarely. "The board meeting is next week. They're going to push for my resignation." Her stomach dropped. "Can they do that?" "They can try. Robert's been rallying support, making his case to shareholders. He's good at politics. Better than me. So what do we do?" "We present the data. Show them what's actually happening versus what Robert's been telling them." He pulled out his phone, showed her a spreadsheet. Downtown location is up 12% in customer satisfaction, 8% in revenue. Turnover dropped from 40% to 15%. Those are real numbers, not projections. "One location isn't enough to prove the model works." "No, but it's a start. And we have 3 other locations implementing the same changes next month." He put his phone away. "I need you at that board meeting." "They hate me." "Perfect. Let them try to argue with actual results." The week before the board meeting, something unexpected happened. Amelia was working late, again, when her office phone rang. Unknown number. "This is Amelia." "Ms. Brooks, this is Catherine Yates. We met at the board meeting." Amelia's hand tightened on the phone. "I remember. I'd like to meet with you, off the record. There's a coffee shop on 5th Street near the financial district. Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. "Why?" "Because I think you're either brilliant or delusional, and I haven't decided which. Either way, I'm curious." They met at an expensive coffee place where everything cost $8 and came in tiny cups. Catherine was already there, sitting by the window, looking exactly as intimidating as Amelia remembered. "Thank you for coming," Catherine said as Amelia sat down. "Did I have a choice?" "Everyone has choices. Most people just don't make the hard ones." She pushed a coffee across the table. "I ordered for you. Latte, 2 sugars. Rebecca mentioned you drink it sickeningly sweet." "Rebecca talks too much." "Rebecca is the only person in that building I trust completely, which is why I listen when she talks." Catherine took a sip of her own coffee, black, obviously. "She says you're the real thing, someone who actually cares about fixing the company, not just advancing your career." "I didn't have a career to advance. I was a waitress 3 months ago." "Exactly. Which makes you either incredibly lucky or incredibly smart." Catherine leaned forward. "I'm going to be direct with you, Ms. Brooks. Robert is going to push for Ethan's resignation at next week's board meeting. He has enough support to make it happen, but he needs a unanimous vote to force it, and right now I'm undecided." Amelia's pulse quickened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want to understand what you're actually trying to accomplish. Robert says you're unqualified and dangerous. Ethan says you're necessary. Rebecca says you're honest. I need to decide who's right." "What do you want to know?" "Why you took this job. The real reason, not the corporate answer." Amelia thought about lying, about giving some polished response about believing in the mission. Instead, she went with honesty. "Because I spent 12 years working jobs where I didn't matter, where I was replaceable, invisible, just a warm body filling a shift. And I got so used to that feeling that I started believing it was true, that I was only worth minimum wage and whatever tips people felt like leaving." She met Catherine's eyes. "Then Ethan offered me a chance to matter, to do something that might actually help people like me. So I took it. Even though you weren't qualified. especially because I wasn't qualified. The qualified people are the ones who built this mess. Maybe it takes someone unqualified to see how broken it really is." Catherine was quiet for a long moment. "The data you presented at the board meeting, the turnover costs, the projections, where did you get that?" "Some from Rebecca's HR files, some from industry research, some from talking to employees who actually do the work instead of just managing it from a distance." "And you believe this model scales? That what works at one location will work company-wide?" "I believe that treating people with basic respect and holding managers accountable isn't a revolutionary concept. It's just good business that we forgot how to do." Catherine smiled slightly. "You sound like Ethan." "Ethan sounds like someone who's tired of pretending profit, and people are mutually exclusive." "They often are. Only if you run the company badly." That got a real smile. Catherine pulled out her phone, made a note. "I'm not making any promises, but I'm not voting with Robert next week. Not yet." "Why not?" "Because I've been on this board for 6 years, and in that time we've prioritized shareholder value over everything else. It's made us rich. It's also made us short-sighted." She stood up, gathering her coat. "Maybe it's time we tried something different, even if it comes from a waitress with a laptop." She left before Amelia could respond. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. Amelia spent Wednesday night preparing presentation materials, running numbers, rehearsing responses to every possible objection. Ethan found her in her office at midnight, surrounded by printouts and empty coffee cups. "Go home," he said. "I'm almost done." "You're exhausted. The presentation doesn't matter if you're too tired to deliver it." She looked up at him. "What if we lose?" "Then we lose. But at least we'll lose fighting for something that matters." "That's not comforting." "It's not meant to be. It's just the truth." He sat down across from her. "I've been thinking about what happens if the board forces me out. Who takes over? What happens to your position? All of it." "Don't. Let me finish. If they remove me, they'll install someone who reverses everything we've done. All the new managers, the policy changes, the accountability measures, gone. Back to the old system where fear drives decisions and profit justifies everything. So we can't lose. We might not have a choice." He rubbed his face. "But if we do lose, I need you to promise me something. Don't quit. Stay and keep fighting. Document everything. Build the case. Even if I'm not there to back you up." "Ethan, promise me." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him they'd win, that the data was too strong, that Catherine's uncertainty meant hope. Instead, she said, "I promise." He nodded, stood to leave, paused at the door. "Thank you. For everything. For being honest, for pushing back, for making me remember why I built this company in the first place. Whatever happens tomorrow, that matters." Thursday morning arrived cold and gray. Amelia wore her best suit, the one she'd bought with her first corporate paycheck. Professional armor for corporate battle. The boardroom felt different this time, more tense. Robert sat at the head of the table, looking confident. Catherine sat to his right, expression unreadable. The other board members looked uncomfortable, like they knew they were about to witness something ugly. Ethan walked in and the room went silent. "Let's get started," Robert said. "We have significant concerns to discuss regarding company leadership and operational direction." For the next hour, Robert built his case. Stock price decline, shareholder concerns, operational instability, management turnover. He presented it all smoothly, professionally, making Ethan sound like a reckless CEO gambling with other people's money. Then it was Ethan's turn. He pulled up the data. Real numbers from the downtown location, revenue, satisfaction scores, retention rates, then projections based on rolling out the same model company-wide. "We're not gambling," Ethan said. "We're correcting. The old system was failing. High turnover, low morale, legal settlements, reputational damage. We were profitable in the short term while destroying our foundation long term." That's speculation. It's math. Look at the turnover costs. Look at the recruitment expenses. Look at the customer satisfaction decline over the past 2 years. He clicked through slides. We were succeeding by metrics that don't actually measure success. Profit without sustainability is just slow-motion failure. Robert leaned forward. And your solution is to trust an untested employee with no corporate experience to restructure our entire operation? My solution is to listen to people who actually understand what's broken instead of executives who benefit from maintaining the status quo. That's insulting. It's accurate. Ethan's voice was ice. You want to talk about my judgment? Let's talk about yours. You sat on this board while we paid settlements to employees we abused, while managers stole tips from minimum wage workers, while good people quit because we created a culture of fear. Where was your concern about judgment then? The room went silent. Catherine spoke next. Ethan, I appreciate your passion, but passion doesn't address shareholder concerns about stability. We need concrete proof this model works, not projections from a single location. Then give me 6 months. 6 months to prove the model, to show real results across multiple locations. If it fails, I'll resign. No fight, no drama. And if we don't give you 6 months, Robert asked, then you force me out now. Install someone who'll reverse everything we've done and watch this company continue its slow decline while pretending quarterly earnings reports mean you're succeeding. Robert smiled coldly. That sounds like a threat. It's a prediction. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Catherine said, I want to hear from Ms. Brooks. Every eye turned to Amelia. Her mouth went dry. Ms. Brooks, Catherine continued, you've been implementing these changes at ground level. In your assessment, is this working? Amelia stood up. Her legs felt shaky, but she forced herself steady. It's working, she said. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but it's working. Employees are staying instead of quitting. They're reporting problems instead of hiding them. Customers are noticing the difference. She pulled up her own laptop. I have statements from 17 employees at the downtown location. They talk about better schedules, fair treatment, actually being heard when they have concerns. That's not projection, that's reality. Employee satisfaction doesn't pay dividends, one of the other board members said. No. But employee retention reduces costs. Improved customer service increases revenue. A culture people want to work in attracts better talent. She looked directly at Robert. You keep talking about shareholder value like it's separate from employee well-being. It's not. They're connected. Happy employees create better customer experiences, which drives revenue, which increases shareholder value. It's not complicated. You're oversimplifying. Ipahat. I'm removing the complicated excuses we use to justify treating people badly. She closed her laptop. Look, I get it. I'm not qualified by your standards. I don't have an MBA. I didn't come from McKinsey or Goldman Sachs, but I know what it's like to work at the bottom of a corporate hierarchy. And I know that the metrics you care about, profit, growth, stock price, all depend on people who are currently being treated like they're disposable. So your recommendation is what? Robert's voice was sharp. We run the company based on feelings? My recommendation is we run it based on reality, instead of the polished bullshit that makes it to your quarterly reports. The room went dead quiet. Robert's face darkened. Ms. Brooks. Ah, she's right, Catherine interrupted. We've been operating on sanitized data for years. Everything filtered through executives who want to tell us what we want to hear. Maybe it's time we heard from someone who doesn't care about playing corporate politics. Robert looked at Catherine, then at the other board members. Something passed between them, a power shift Amelia couldn't quite read. I'm calling for a vote, Robert said. All in favor of requesting Ethan Callaway's resignation as CEO. Wait, Catherine's voice cut through. I'd like to propose an alternative. Give Ethan his 6 months, full operational authority to implement his cultural reform. If the numbers don't improve, real numbers, not just employee satisfaction surveys, then we revisit leadership. But if they do improve, we acknowledge that maybe our operational priorities needed correction. That's ridiculous. I'll second it, another board member said. An older woman Amelia didn't know. I've been watching our retention numbers decline for 2 years. If Ethan thinks he can fix it, let him try. Robert's expression went cold. This is a mistake. Then it's our mistake to make. All in favor of Catherine's proposal? 5 hands went up, just enough. Robert didn't raise his hand, neither did 2 others. But it was enough. Motion passes, Catherine said. Ethan, you have 6 months. Make them count. The meeting ended shortly after. Robert stormed out without speaking to anyone. The other board members filed out more slowly, some looking relieved, others concerned. Catherine stopped beside Amelia on her way out. Don't make me regret that vote, Ms. Brooks. I'll do my best. Your best better be exceptional. But she was almost smiling. When the boardroom cleared, it was just Amelia and Ethan. He was still standing at the head of the table, hands braced against the wood, breathing like he'd just run a marathon. We won, Amelia said. We bought time. That's different. It's something. He looked up at her. 6 months. If we can't show results in 6 months, this is over. Then we show results. Amelia, sure? No, we just stood in front of the board and told them we could fix this company. Now we actually have to do it. She grabbed her laptop. So let's get to work. They worked. 6 months felt impossibly short and endlessly long at the same time. Amelia stopped counting days and started counting small victories instead. A complaint resolved fairly. A toxic manager replaced with someone decent. An employee who stayed instead of quitting. The work was brutal. She spent January rolling out the new management model to 4 more locations. February brought a wave of resistance. Managers who resented oversight, employees who didn't trust that things would actually change, executives who undermined her at every opportunity. James Rodriguez was the worst. He'd smile in meetings while quietly telling managers to ignore her policy recommendations. He'd forward her emails to the board with passive-aggressive commentary about operational inexperience. He never confronted her directly, just chipped away at her authority in small, careful ways. In early March, she caught him. One of the new managers called her, upset. James told me the anonymous complaint system is optional, that I don't have to implement it if I think it'll create problems. He said, what? He was really nice about it. Said you mean well, but don't understand restaurant operations. That experienced managers know when to bend corporate policies. Amelia's hands clenched. Did he put that in writing? Email. Want me to forward it? 20 minutes later, she walked into James's office without knocking. He looked up from his computer, startled. We need to talk, she said. Ms. Brooks, I wasn't expecting... You told Greg Patterson the complaint system is optional. His expression smoothed into corporate neutrality. I suggested he use his professional judgment about implementation timing. There's a difference. No, there isn't. The policy is mandatory. You know it's mandatory. You're deliberately undermining it. I'm providing operational context to managers who understand the complexity. Stop. She dropped the printed email on his desk. You can spin this to me all you want, but Ethan's going to see it exactly for what it is. Insubordination, deliberately sabotaging company policy. James's jaw tightened. You're really going to run to Ethan over a difference in management philosophy? This isn't philosophy. This is you protecting the old system because it benefited you. The old system worked. The old system let managers steal tips and harass employees. It worked for you. It destroyed everyone else. He stood up, and for the first time since she'd met him, the corporate mask dropped. You don't belong here. You're a waitress playing executive, and everyone knows it. Ethan might be too blinded by whatever this is between you to see it, but the rest of us aren't fooled. There's nothing between us except trying to fix the company you helped break. Keep telling yourself that. He walked around his desk, got close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. You think this crusade of yours matters? That you're changing anything? All you're doing is making everyone miserable until the board finally removes Ethan and we go back to running things properly. Then I guess you have 3 months to wait. His smile was cold. I'm counting on it. She took the email to Ethan that afternoon. He read it twice, expression darkening. He's been doing this the whole time, Ethan said quietly. Small resistance, quiet sabotage. I knew he disagreed with the changes, but I didn't realize he was actively working against them. What are you going to do? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone and called HR. Rebecca, I need termination paperwork prepared for James Rodriguez. Today. Amelia's breath caught. You're firing him? I'm firing him. Send him in when you have the paperwork ready. He hung up. Looked at Amelia. This is going to get ugly. James has allies on the executive team, friends on the board. Firing him sends a message that I'm not sure everyone's ready to hear. What message? That I'm serious, that this isn't negotiable, that anyone who actively undermines what we're building will be removed, regardless of tenure or relationships. Good. Send that message. James was terminated 2 hours later. By dinner time, the executive floor was buzzing with speculation and outrage. By the next morning, 2 more executives had submitted their resignations rather than work under the new culture. Ethan didn't try to stop them. "We're hemorrhaging leadership," Michael Tang said during an emergency executive meeting. 3 senior positions gone in 24 hours. This is exactly the instability the board was worried about. "The instability was already there," Ethan replied. "We're just making it visible instead of ignoring it." "And who's going to fill these roles? More waitresses with laptops?" Amelia had been quiet until that moment. "Actually, yes. Jennifer Martinez is interviewing for regional management. Marcus Chen is being considered for multi-location oversight. Both of them have more real operational experience than half the executives who just quit." Michael stared at her. "You're promoting servers to executive positions." "I'm promoting people who understand how the company actually functions and care about making it better. Their previous job titles are irrelevant." "The board will never approve." "The board gave us 6 months," Ethan interrupted. "We're using them. If you can't support that, Michael, I'll accept your resignation too." Michael's face went red, but he didn't quit, just sat there, seething. The meeting ended badly, but something had shifted. The executives who remained knew Ethan wasn't bluffing anymore. March became April. The winter cold broke into something almost warm, and slowly, grudgingly, the numbers started moving. Turnover dropped from 40% to 28% company-wide. Customer satisfaction scores climbed. The downtown location, Amelia's test case, hit record revenue while maintaining the lowest turnover in the company. Employee complaints were up, which Amelia knew looked bad on paper, but Rebecca understood what the numbers actually meant. "They're not complaining more," Rebecca explained during a review meeting. "They're just reporting problems they used to hide. That's progress." Amelia spent April traveling to different locations, meeting with managers, listening to employees. She heard stories about schedules that finally made sense, tips that weren't stolen, managers who actually listened, small things that meant everything to people who'd been ignored for years. But she also heard resistance, employees who didn't trust that the changes would last, managers who were going through the motions without buying in, skepticism that ran bone deep. "Why should we believe this is real?" one server asked during a location visit. "Corporate always talks about caring, then nothing changes. How is this different?" Amelia didn't have a perfect answer, just an honest one. "It's different because people are being held accountable now. It's different because complaints are investigated instead of buried. It's different because we're measuring success differently. But you're right to be skeptical. Trust isn't rebuilt with words. It's rebuilt with consistency over time." "So we're supposed to just wait and see?" "You're supposed to hold us accountable. If things slide back, report it, document it, make noise. That's the only way this works long term." In late April, Sophie's school called Ethan during a meeting. Amelia watched his expression change, concern, then fear. He ended the call quickly. "I have to go. Sophie fell on the playground. They think her arm might be broken." "Go," Amelia said. "We'll handle things here." He was gone in seconds, leaving his laptop, his phone, everything. Just a father running to his daughter. Amelia covered his afternoon meetings, fielded calls, made decisions that technically required his approval but couldn't wait. Around 6 p.m., he texted, "Fractured wrist. She's okay but scared. I'm staying at the hospital tonight. Stay as long as she needs. We're fine here." The next morning, he didn't come to the office. Or the day after that. For 3 days, Ethan Callaway, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, stayed home with his daughter while she recovered, and the world didn't end. When he finally returned on Thursday, he looked exhausted but different. Lighter, somehow. "How is she?" Amelia asked, milking the attention for all it's worth. "She made me watch the same movie 4 times yesterday." He smiled. "It was perfect." "You stayed home 3 full days." "I did." "The board's going to have opinions about that." "Let them. My daughter needed me. Everything else could wait." That's when Amelia realized they'd already won, regardless of what happened in the next 2 months. Because Ethan had remembered what mattered, not just as CEO, but as a person. May brought unexpected support. 2 business publications ran articles about Callaway Hospitality's cultural transformation. One was skeptical but fair. The other was surprisingly positive, featuring interviews with employees about improved working conditions. Stock price stabilized, then started climbing. The board noticed. Catherine Yates called Amelia directly. The Q1 numbers look good, better than projected. Turns out when people aren't constantly quitting, you spend less money training replacements. Revolutionary concept. Catherine's tone was dry. Robert's still pushing for a vote against Ethan at the 6-month review. Does he have the votes? Not anymore, but he's going to make noise about it. Be prepared. The final board meeting was scheduled for the 3rd week of May. Amelia spent 2 weeks preparing a comprehensive presentation. Numbers, testimonials, projections, everything they'd accomplished and everything still in progress. The night before the meeting, she worked until midnight. Ethan found her in her office, surrounded by printouts and half-empty coffee cups. Same as before. Full circle. You should go home, he said, exactly like last time. I'm almost done. Amelia. He sat down across from her. Whatever happens tomorrow, you know this worked, right? The company's better than it was. People are better. That matters regardless of what the board decides. Is that your way of saying we might lose? It's my way of saying we already won the important part. We proved it's possible to run a company that's profitable and treats people decently. That knowledge doesn't disappear even if Robert somehow forces me out. She looked at him. Really looked at him. 6 months ago, he'd been this intimidating billionaire sitting alone at table 17. Now he was just Ethan, tired, human, trying to be better than he'd been. You're different, she said. So are you. How? You don't apologize for taking up space anymore. You walk into executive meetings like you belong there, because you do. I still feel like I'm faking it most of the time. That's called imposter syndrome. Everyone has it. The difference is you don't let it stop you. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Ethan said, Sophie wants to meet you. Amelia blinked. What? She knows about the work you've been doing. She asked why I'm home more now, and I told her someone helped me remember that being a dad matters more than being busy. She wants to meet the person who did that. Ethan, I don't think... Just dinner. Nothing formal. She's 7 and obsessed with dinosaurs. You'd get along. Amelia's throat felt tight. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'd like that. The board meeting started at 10 a.m. Same boardroom, same expensive table, but the energy was different, less hostile, more curious. Robert sat at the head of the table, expression neutral. Catherine sat beside him, and this time she smiled slightly when Amelia walked in. Ethan presented first. 6 months of data. Retention rates, customer satisfaction, revenue growth, cost savings. Every number pointed the same direction, up. The downtown location is now the most profitable restaurant in our portfolio, Ethan said. Not because we cut costs or increased prices, but because we reduced turnover and improved service quality. Customers notice the difference. They come back more often. They spend more. They leave better reviews. 1 location, Robert said. That's hardly conclusive. 4 locations. We rolled out the model to 3 others in February. All 4 are now in the top tier for profitability and customer satisfaction. Amelia pulled up her presentation. Employee testimonials, complaint resolution rates, retention improvements. She'd interviewed 50 employees across all locations, compiled their stories into something the board couldn't ignore. These aren't statistics, she said. They're people. People who used to dread coming to work and now don't. People who used to job hunt constantly and now feel stable. People who talk about their workplace positively instead of just enduring it. She clicked through testimonials, read quotes, showed before and after satisfaction scores. The question isn't whether this model works, Amelia continued. The data proves it works. The question is whether you believe a company can be both profitable and humane, or if you think we have to choose. Robert leaned back in his chair. Ms. Brooks, I appreciate the idealism, but businesses exist to generate shareholder value. Everything else is secondary. Shareholder value depends on sustainable growth. You can't have sustainable growth if you're constantly replacing employees and losing customers to competitors who treat people better. Our competitors aren't implementing these expensive cultural programs. Our competitors are copying us now. I've fielded 3 calls from industry consultants asking about our model. If we abandon it now, we hand them the advantage. That landed. She could see it in the board members' faces. Catherine spoke next. The 6-month trial is complete. The numbers speak for themselves. I move that we approve Ethan's continued leadership and full implementation of the cultural development program company-wide. Second, said the older woman who'd supported them before. Robert's expression darkened. This is premature. We should extend the trial period, gather more data. We have enough data, Catherine interrupted. Employee retention is up. Revenue is up. Customer satisfaction is up. Stock price is up 12% since January. What other data do you need? Long-term sustainability is better served by this model than by the old system that was actively failing. Catherine looked around the table. All in favor? 7 hands went up. Robert didn't raise his hand. Neither did one other board member, but it was more than enough. Motion passes, Catherine said. Ethan, you have full board support. Continue the work. Robert stood up stiffly. I'd like to submit my resignation from the board, effective immediately. The room went silent. You don't have to do that, Ethan said. Yes, I do. I fundamentally disagree with this direction. I believe you're prioritizing feelings over financial discipline, and I can in good conscience support that. He gathered his materials. I hope you prove me wrong, but I don't think you will. He left without another word. Catherine watched him go, then turned to Ethan. That's unfortunate, but probably for the best. Robert's been fighting progress for years. What about his replacement? We'll find someone who understands that business sustainability and employee well-being aren't mutually exclusive. She smiled at Amelia. Maybe someone who started their career actually doing the work instead of just managing it. The meeting wrapped up shortly after. Congratulations from board members who'd been skeptical before. Questions about implementation timelines. Actual support instead of resistance. When the boardroom cleared, Amelia and Ethan stood by the windows, looking out at the city. We did it, she said quietly. You did it. I just stopped getting in the way. That's not true. It is, actually. 6 months ago, I was so buried in corporate thinking that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. You showed me. You and Sophie, both. Amelia thought about the exhausted man who'd sat alone at table 17 and the version standing beside her now. Same person, completely different. What happens now? She asked. Now we do the hard part. Scale this model to all 73 locations. Train new managers. Root out the remaining toxic leadership. Build something that lasts beyond quarterly earnings reports. Sounds impossible. Probably is. Good thing we're used to impossible. Over the next month, Amelia barely saw her apartment. The company-wide rollout was massive. New training programs, management restructuring, policy implementations across every location. She hired a team to help, promoted Jennifer to senior leadership, gave Marcus oversight of the entire restaurant division. The old guard continued to resist. Some managers quit rather than adapt. Others were fired for refusing to implement the changes. It was messy and painful and necessary. But slowly, the culture shifted. Complaints were taken seriously. Employees spoke up without fear. Managers led instead of intimidated. The company started feeling less like a machine and more like a collection of humans trying to do decent work. In late June, Amelia got a call from the restaurant where it all started. Marcus. You need to come down here, he said. Tonight. Around 7. Why? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Just come. She drove to the restaurant confused and mildly anxious. When she walked in, the place was packed, but not with customers, with employees. Current and former, from locations across the city. Marcus stood near table 17, grinning. Surprise! Someone handed her a glass of champagne. Jennifer appeared beside her. We wanted to celebrate, Jennifer said. 6 months ago, this place was a nightmare. Now it's, She looked around. Now it's somewhere people actually want to work. That's because of you. It's because of all of us. Don't do that. Don't minimize it. Marcus raised his glass. To Amelia, who took a job she wasn't qualified for and somehow did it anyway. To Amelia, the room echoed. She felt tears prickling and blinked them back. I didn't do this alone. Ethan supported it. Rebecca helped. You all made it work at ground level. We made it work because someone finally listened to us, a server interrupted. Young kid, couldn't be more than 20. First time in my life, I've had a manager who didn't treat me like I was disposable. That matters. Others echoed the sentiment. Stories about fair schedules, resolved complaints, managers who actually cared. Small victories that accumulated into something larger. Amelia looked at table 17, empty now, just a table like any other. 6 months ago, a billionaire had sat there alone, and she'd walked over without fear because she'd had nothing to lose. Now she had everything to lose, and somehow that made her braver instead of more afraid. Ethan showed up around 8, Sophie in tow. The little girl had a bright pink cast on her wrist and was currently explaining dinosaur facts to anyone who'd listen. "You threw me a party," Amelia said when he reached her. "Marcus threw you a party. I just provided the budget." "Still," Sophie tugged on Amelia's sleeve. "Are you the one who made my dad stop being grumpy all the time?" Amelia laughed. "I helped maybe, but he did most of the work. He's way better now. We went to the zoo last weekend, the whole weekend, no phone calls or anything." Sophie's expression was serious. "That was really good." "I'm glad." Sophie hugged her suddenly, fierce and quick, then ran off to continue her dinosaur lecture series. Ethan watched her go, something soft in his expression. "She likes you." "I like her too. She's got good taste in dinosaurs. She gets that from her mother." He paused. "Thank you for everything. For pushing me, for calling me out when I needed it, for not letting me hide behind corporate excuses. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, you accelerated the process." He looked at table 17. "Feels like a lifetime ago that I sat there thinking I was testing everyone else." "What are you testing now?" "Nothing. I'm just trying to show up. As a CEO, as a father, as a person. Turns out that's enough." They stood together, watching employees celebrate, watching Sophie explain something enthusiastically to Marcus, watching this small piece of the world they'd helped make better. Amelia had spent 30 years believing she needed to earn her place in the world through perfection and endless work. That her worth was conditional, always one mistake away from evaporating. She was still learning that wasn't true. Still fighting the voice that said she didn't deserve this, the success, the respect, the feeling of mattering. But she was learning, and maybe that was the real lesson hiding in all of this. That worth wasn't something you earned through suffering or proved through exhaustion. It was something you claimed by showing up honestly, by refusing to shrink yourself to fit other people's expectations, by believing that your perspective mattered even when everyone told you it didn't. The company would keep changing. Some changes would stick, others would need adjustment. There would be setbacks, resistance, failures. Nothing was fixed forever. But for tonight, in this restaurant that had transformed from a place of fear to a place of possibility, Amelia let herself feel proud. Not of being perfect, she'd never be perfect, but of being brave enough to try. 3 months later, the company's annual report showed record profits alongside record employee retention. Business publications ran features about the turnaround. Other companies started reaching out, asking for consulting on cultural transformation. Amelia hired a team to handle the consulting requests. She promoted Rebecca to Chief People Officer. She built systems and processes designed to outlast individual leaders. And she kept showing up. Some mornings she woke up still terrified she'd made a mistake, that someone would realize she didn't belong, that everything would collapse. Those mornings were hard, but she got up anyway. Because the alternative, going back to believing she was only worth minimum wage and whatever validation people felt like giving, that wasn't an option anymore. She'd tasted what it felt like to matter, to build something meaningful, to help people instead of just serving them. There was no going back from that. On a random Tuesday in September, almost a year after Ethan first walked into the restaurant, Amelia found herself at table 17 again. Marcus had insisted she come down for lunch, said there was something she needed to see. When she arrived, the table was set for 2, and sitting there reading something on his phone was Ethan. "What is this?" she asked. "Lunch. I ordered for both of us." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." She sat. "You're being weird." "I'm being reflective. There's a difference." He put his phone away. 1 year ago, I sat at this table thinking I was conducting research, testing my employees, diagnosing problems, maintaining control. I remember. You walked over and treated me like a normal customer. No fear, no flattery, just basic human decency. And it broke something open in me. He met her eyes. I'd spent 4 years building walls around myself, around my company, around my relationship with my daughter, convinced that control and distance kept me safe. You didn't accept those walls. You just talked to me like I was a person instead of a position. Where are you going with this? I'm saying thank you. For the honesty. For the partnership. For helping me remember who I wanted to be instead of who I'd become. He slid an envelope across the table. And I'm offering you a promotion. She opened it. Chief Cultural Officer. Executive compensation package that made her previous salary look like pocket change. Ethan, before you argue about qualifications or experience, just remember, a year ago you were a waitress who took a job she wasn't qualified for and transformed an entire company. I think you can handle this. She read the offer letter twice, trying to process it. This is an executive position. Yes. I'll be in meetings with the board, making company-wide policy decisions, representing the company publicly. Yes. A year ago I was serving you ribeye, and now you're changing how an entire industry thinks about employee culture. He leaned forward. You've earned this, Amelia. Not because I'm being generous, but because you've proven yourself every single day for a year. Say yes. She wanted to deflect, to minimize, to list all the reasons she wasn't ready. Instead, she said, yes. They ate lunch at table 17, talking about implementation timelines and strategic priorities and the 100 small details that went into running a company. But underneath the business conversation was something quieter. Two people who'd found each other at exactly the right time, when they both needed someone to be honest with them. Not romance. Neither of them was looking for that. Just partnership. Friendship. Mutual respect between two humans who'd helped each other become better versions of themselves. Sophie wants to know if you'll come to her science fair next month, Ethan said over coffee. What's her project? Something about dinosaur bone density. I didn't follow the details, but she's very passionate about it. I'll be there. Thank you. Fair warning, she'll probably make you judge the other projects too. She's gotten very opinionated about scientific methodology. Wonder where she gets that from. He smiled. No idea. Amelia looked around the restaurant. New staff, better management, completely different energy than a year ago. People laughing, working smoothly together, treating customers well because they were treated well themselves. It wasn't perfect. There were still problems, still complaints, still days when everything felt overwhelming. But it was better. Significantly, measurably better. And that was worth celebrating. She'd spent most of her life believing she needed to be perfect to deserve good things. That one mistake would erase any progress. That her worth was always conditional, always temporary. She was still learning to let that go. Still fighting the instinct to apologize for taking up space. Still working on believing she deserved the success she'd built. But she was getting there. One day, one decision, one moment of choosing courage over fear at a time. And someday, maybe not today, maybe not soon, but someday, she'd fully believe what Ethan and Rebecca and Marcus and all the employees she'd helped already knew. That she'd always been worth more than she was paid. Always been capable of more than she was allowed to do. Always mattered, even when the world treated her like she didn't. She just needed the chance to prove it. And now, sitting at table 17 where everything started, Amelia Brooks, former waitress, current chief cultural officer, permanent believer in second chances, finally understood that she'd given herself that chance the moment she decided to walk over to a difficult customer and treat him with simple, honest respect. Everything else had just been details. The best kind of details. The kind that changed lives, starting with her own.